What are the biggest misconceptions about working out loud?
People tend to focus on the loud part. It's more nuanced than that. It's not personal branding. It's not about shouting. There are no megaphones. It is about exploring how you can let your voice be heard. It doesn't start with, how can I get other people to pay attention to me? You're not an influencer. It starts with, what do I have to offer that might be useful or helpful to other people?
John, I'm very excited to have you on the Core Impact podcast. The first thing I would like to start directly with you is knowing your intention behind working out loud and after this, writing the book about it.
It started, first of all, thanks for having me here. It's great to talk to you. I miss Munich, and hopefully one day we'll meet in person. That would be lovely.
Yeah.
It started, as many things do, with a need that I had myself, which was, at the time, I was working at a big company. It was Deutsche Bank. And for sure, I felt that something was missing. My career was at kind of a lower point than it had been as I was getting older. And I felt that there was more that I could offer, besides my job description or the results of the latest reorg or budget cut. There was more that I could offer, and there was more that the company had to offer. So it's kind of a matching problem, right? Like, hey, there's got to be something more here than just look for another job or just be depressed and that's that need, that itch, led me to experiment with ways that I could contribute to the workplace in ways that weren't in my job description, in ways that might not be recognized by my boss, perhaps, but would be valued or helpful to other people. And that led me to connections across the company, which made my everyday better. And ultimately, over time, led to new job, new career inside the company and then outside. And so that was my impetus with, how could I help people experience what I experienced, which is this way of exploring what else and who else is out there, but doing it in such a way that it felt like you were contributing and being useful and helpful, that felt more service-oriented, so to speak, than trying to get something from other people or worse, compete with them.
John, I noticed that when things like this, like shifts like this happen, usually there is a story behind it. Could be as simple as changing the routine by meditating, for example, or journaling, or having, for example, a few days off, maybe a week, like for time for yourself. Did any of that happen, and how did this shift started within you?
It was, you're right in that it was small steps that gradually led somewhere, even if I don't know where they were leading at the time.
Right.
And those small steps could be as simple as we had a new intranet at work that was social. So I would make a point of doing kind of one thing a day. It's just one thing that might be helpful to other people. Gradually, I started to write more. I never wrote. Like, why would you write at work? Like, you wrote memos or you made slides. And I started to blog, and nobody at work blogged. Like, it was a weird thing back in the day. That led to more connections and more experiments. And then I started to coach people one-on-one. And I'm not a coach. But point being, these small steps kind of got me moving. They got me to see more. They made my world a little bit bigger. And then that exposed me to what a next step could be, or a next experiment. Gradually, if you look backwards, you can connect the dots to some kind of path. But at the time, they were just small daily or weekly actions that brought me in touch with more ideas and more people. And again, they kind of fueled my motivation to keep trying things.
Remember, John, you said that working out loud helps connecting to values, which are growth and connection.
Yeah.
Do you have any story, an example that illustrates this?
Oh, yeah, hundreds. Let's see. I'll pick one that I like telling recently. Her name's Bettina. Uh, Bettina works in Germany, in Frankfurt, in a dialysis clinic, a company that owns dialysis clinics. And she was involved in training, knowledge management, SharePoint, right? She had a job, like a job with a job description and a boss, but this, which is fine, by the way. But inside Bettina, she had bigger aspirations. Like she had interests and passions. She was in healthcare for a reason, and she wanted to make healthcare better for our health, but also better for the people who worked in healthcare. And that was inside her, but it really didn't play into her job at all. And Bettina was in a circle. This is 2017, 2018. She has a good experience, and she has the idea, hey, we need this kind of thing in healthcare. Not networking necessarily, not being visible on LinkedIn, but this kind of growth and connection. She winds up developing a method together with me, specifically for healthcare. She spreads it in her organization. She starts to spread it in other organizations. Her work's featured in a couple of books. She's speaking at conferences. She's still in the same job. And this is what I like about this story. It isn't about escaping from the cubicle. Sometimes it is, but you don't have to. Like, because it's good to get a paycheck every 2 weeks, and it's good to have a platform where you can experiment. And although her bosses were skeptical at first, like, Bettina, what are you doing? Do we have time for this? Is this part of your job? When she won an award, it was a check for 10,000 euros to keep going. Her bosses were very happy. And now she's celebrated. Why I like this story in particular is not just that she went on to do great things and continues to do them. She just did a project in a hospital in Zurich. Not that she did great things for herself and for other people and organizations, for her company, but that she brought this other side to her alive. Like, she's more alive as a result of this. And that affects her for sure, but it affects all the people around her. And that's really what I'm trying to unlock, is that in these small circles, people get a chance to be themselves. They're not afraid of being judged or ridiculed or whatever it is, not being good enough. They're in a safe space where they can experiment, try new things. And over time, like growth and connection, experience those in a safe space. It just feels so good that many people like Bettina continue to either join circles themselves or say, look, I want to spread this thing because I want other people to feel this too.
I like this, John, that you can be yourself and you can experiment, and you don't have to have a radical change. And always, like, when I talk about change, you have to change your job or like have these big transitions, right?
Right. Look, if it happens, that's great. But just for most people, it's kind of a bridge too far, right? The idea of, and I'm an example of that. Like, I found it impossible to leave my job for whatever reasons, right? Like family or responsibility or something. And so this kind of incremental approach was right for me. For other people, it's quite different. They go, they write a book, they form their own company, they do other things, great. What the circle allows you to do, particularly because all the methods are kind of 8 to 12 weeks, is it gives you time to kind of see what's right for you. It can tell you what to do, but it gives you a nice structure and a nice support and shared accountability to explore for yourself what's right.
While you are listening to the Core Impact podcast, please take a moment to pause and share with me. How do you feel? Are you enjoying the conversation? feeling inspired, or something else? I would love to know your feelings in the comments. John, what are the biggest misconceptions about working out loud that you hear from people?
I'm glad you asked that. People will tend to focus on the loud part. And so for sure, and particularly since things have evolved over the past 10 years, there's a sense that, this is about, it's very American. It's putting yourself out there. It's being visible. It's being loud, right? And I get that. I can see why people might think that, given it's in the title. But it's more nuanced than that. It's not personal branding. It's not about shouting. There are no megaphones. It is about exploring how you can let your voice be heard, right? It doesn't start with, how can I get other people to pay attention to me, right? You're not an influencer. It starts with, what do I have to offer that might be useful or helpful to other people? So it starts with generosity. And you can make those kinds of contributions the way we're doing that. You could do it in person, you could do it by email, you could do it by text, you could do it in small groups. Yes, you could do it using social media platforms like LinkedIn, but you don't have to. They're just a range of channels and tools that have pluses and minuses. And the working out loud is really, I like to think of it more as you're voicing some of the interests, passions, ideas inside you. And you're doing that out loud together with other people. So it's more of a social act than a social media act.
So the biggest misconception is not about being an influencer and being loud and showing like how great you are, but it's about contribution.
Right. Which is hard enough, right? Just takes a kind of courage to like dare let your voice be heard, to say like, I have something to offer. I hope it's helpful. Like, that's a vulnerable act. Even right now, what we're doing on your part, on my part. But when you do it, and you do it over time, small steps with a supportive group, it emboldens you, like it did with Bettina. And that's a beautiful feeling. Call it self-efficacy or some other fancy name. But it's a kind of deep-rooted confidence that people start to experience, and that enables and unlocks some really, really lovely things.
John, that leads me directly to a question that I was planning to ask you, which is about the generosity test, as I remember you called it. And it's about offering value without expectations.
Yep.
And also links to something else. Also, I heard you saying that you should not focus on the outcomes, but also how do you contribute to others? The same thing that we were talking about. And my question is, how do you convince companies and business people to make this shift? Because most people still understand business as about making profit.
Yeah.
But it's about the outcomes.
It's highly unlikely I'm going to convince anybody, because you're right. Like the are what they are. The systems are what they are. It lends itself to a more competitive mindset, and I think we have some very crude ideas about what work is supposed to be like. So I don't. I'm not so bold that I think, I'm going to change that, and tell people to be generous. However, what I can do, while other people work on changing systems and cultures, what I can do is, like, for you and with a small group of people, I can have you experience why this is a better strategy. Why, we'll call it leading with generosity, a phrase Keith Ferrazzi uses. Why leading with generosity actually helps make you more effective, helps you build trust with other people, and unlocks or earns you access to opportunities, to knowledge, to collaboration possibilities that you would never have otherwise. But you won't believe me or you won't actually practice it until you experience it for yourself and you start to develop habits. That's why our program's so damn long. Like 12 weeks, who's got time for that? Who goes to a course or any kind of learning thing that's 12 weeks? It's an hour a week. Sometimes people prep before for 12 weeks. Sometimes people stretch it out over, 14 or 16. But it's that practice over time that that starts to really get into your head, that helps you develop habits, and it becomes a natural way of working that's quite different from what we're used to. That's how I convince them.
You remember they said the purpose discovery is about having intention on openness. What I understand is you have to have a clear intention on like who you are, what do you want, and be open to possibilities because everything is changing around the world. Did I get it
Yeah,
right? And how do you explain it?
yeah. Because see, these things, there's a little dissonance here between this idea of I'm being intentional and purposeful. Like I want to meet people who do X, right? You might want to learn from other podcasters. Let's say you want, and there's a whole list of people who do it really well. So you want to be a better podcaster, and you want to meet people who, right? Well, that doesn't feel very generous, right? That feels like you're trying to get something. But the discovery part, the openness part that you refer to is yes, I do have a direction that I'm heading in. I do have a goal. And that's what intrinsically motivates me. But in the service of that goal, I am going to contribute to these people. And I'm going to find ways, whether it's I'm engaging with their podcast, whether I'm just offering my praise and attention on the work that they've done. I share that it's inspired me. I share their content with other people. Even the most famous people do not get tired of hearing that you like their work and found it useful. It's why they do it. It's motivating for them. It's fulfilling. So you have plenty of contributions to make. And that's how I bridge this gap between being purposeful, trying to meet people and build relationships related to a specific goal. And yet also doing it in a way that feels good, that feels authentic, that feels human, that's generous.
How do you live Ikigai?
So I think this word certainly kind of captured the attention of a number of people. So you'll see it on various platforms about what your purpose is. But so Ikigai is a nice Japanese word, and it's actually on surveys in Okinawa where people live to be quite old. Where on the survey it'll say, "What's your Ikigai? What is your reason for getting up in the morning? Like, what's your purpose?" And I think particularly here in America, and maybe all over the West, it feels like it needs to be a grand thing, like a like you've got to make a dent in the universe kind of thing. The people in Okinawa aren't necessarily doing that. Their purpose could well be being an active part in their community, taking care of their kids or grandkids, dog, a garden. However, it's almost always other oriented. It's so you don't necessarily have an Ikigai that says I'm gonna achieve X and I'm gonna make Y. But those are fine goals, but generally that's not a reason for getting up in the morning for most people. It's much more powerful, it turns out, because we're social animals, that it is other oriented. And how I do that, certainly my kids, I've got 5 kids, and my family are at the heart of my existence and my Ikigai. But there's, when it comes to work, when I structure my work so that I can genuinely feel that I'm helping other people, it's still a business, but the business is such that it helps other people, then I'm living it. When I find that I'm trying to sell more working out loud workbooks to companies who don't care, then I'm not. And man, I feel it. And it is, so I don't always get it right. And there have been times over the past, 10 years, certainly over my life, where you just kind of waver off course, right? And that's why circles can help. That's why just friends and family who are like, give you some candid feedback will help to get you back on track, to tap into that. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is this really fulfilling for me? Is it other oriented? Is it genuinely helpful? But back to leading with generosity. And I think, like I said, each day, some days I'm on it and some days I'm not doing so well, but that is a good North Star.
John, I remember you saying that you were talking about being
Yeah.
selfish and otherish
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
same time. Yeah. Would you like to also
So that was
tell me what you
from
mean by this?
Adam Grant's book, Give and Take, which I thought was great. Yeah, the concept is right. If you're purely selfish, you're doing your things only for your own benefit. Well, that gets old very quickly, certainly for all the people around you. So we know that that's probably not great. On the other hand, if you're purely otherish, other-oriented, and you know people like this, they burn out. It's really hard, and it's not just, you don't have to be Mother Teresa to do this. You could work in healthcare. You could be a single parent. You could be y- many, many ways that you could just, you're always focused on the needs of other people and you neglect your own, and then bad things happen. So what we try to help people do in these circles is to reflect enough so that they're aware of like, okay, what do I need? And it could be a goal. It could be some other kind of need. We have 8 different methods now. So there are many different ways to use working out loud. What do I need? What am I trying to do? And what are the needs of other people? What can I offer to them? How can I help them? How can I build trust with them? And that balance, that keeping it in mind, you're not just trying to empathize, read what other people do or need, but at the same time, you are self-aware. So self-awareness and other people awareness, if you can combine those, boy, that's a superpower that I don't know that any of us will ever get there fully, but that's worth working on
Hmm. Yeah. Every day.
every day. And again, it's you don't have to go far to practice this, like at the breakfast table, or at a meeting, or on the subway, or whatever it is. You will have a chance to practice this. And the challenge is that that's really hard to do. But the good news is that, man, you could practice this. You have hundreds of chances a day to like rewire your brain to be mindful of yourself and also mindful of other people. And if you could do these micro practices throughout the day, there's a cumulative effect, and you'll be calmer and happier, and you'll have a much more vibrant, healthy social network.
Hmm. John, there's also something I noticed. I assume you're doing it very consciously, that sometimes when you have conversations with people and they ask you a question and you have a bit of different perspective, instead of saying but, you say yes and, right?
Yeah, that's an old
How
trick.
how
Yeah.
how much did it change the way you have conversations with people?
Right. So this is a well-worn technique, right? And the Germans in particular, yeah, but it's very it it um, but it's certainly not just them. So besides the kind of semantic trick of using and trying to be more open and recognizing the other person, what I find kind of a layer deeper is that for sure there are times where I'm trying to be right. And
Mm,
so my
mm,
goal in the conversation is to reject the other person's point of view or deny it, or just again, like, or step on it with my point of view. And so this technique helps me not to do that. It means that I may listen more. It means that I may try and take greater pains to replay what they said so that I can actually hear it properly, that I really understand it. And so this verbal trick is almost like a little reminder, like a little bell going off that says, "Hey, what I'm about to say may not be the truth. It may just be my truth." And I'm at least going to be open to that. It doesn't mean there aren't rights and wrongs, or that we all have to agree. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean that I should at least have a conversation with curiosity and openness before I'm so damn sure about that.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like trying to be right, I think it's one of the core reasons why we have so many issues around the world in
Right,
different
right.
aspects.
So, boy, Marshall Rosenberg taught nonviolent communications, and I wish he was around now because we really need him. And again, though, even if we're not going to change, global politics, you could practice this around the dinner table with your family, or practice it, on your commute to work. This idea of just trying to remain open as long as possible before you just react and before you just impose your point of view or opinion.
There's something else I noticed, like this is one of the
I love
things
your
you
preparation.
concentrate on,
You're on it. Yeah, that's great.
which is diversity and inclusion. So what does that mean to you, first of all, in business? And what is the meaning of it? I mean, how important it is you find it?
I grew up, so on the surface, I'm a white male, right? So that puts me in some kind of box. But I grew up in the Bronx. We were lower middle class, not much money. I don't think anybody there went to college. My parents certainly didn't. My dad didn't graduate high school. So what does diversity mean? It means to me two things. I still hold on to this, dare I say, American dream, that everybody deserves a shot, like that you shouldn't exclude people just because of where they went to school, because of what they look like, because of some external thing. So I'm very much one performance review criticized me for being of the people. Like as a manager, I was supposed to be tougher, but I felt like everybody, deserved to be developed and not just put in some 9-box grid. So one, everybody deserves a chance for growth and opportunity. One. Two is, most, if not all of what we're doing, I love the balloons in the background. Most, if not all of what we're doing are the result of our environment. And what does that mean? It means that you really better take a long, hard look at the systems that are in place. Everything like your recruiting systems, your promotion systems, your payment systems, how you treat people. Because a lot of what determines who gets what is driven by systems, and that may be invisible to us. So I guess I'm saying what I like about the diversity and inclusion called movement is that it forced many of us, myself included, to dig deeper and go beyond, like, is this person good or bad? But like, hey, how are the systems we have in place? How are they putting some people forward but holding some people back? And once you peel back that curtain, everything from like who gets into the local high performing high school, what's that test like? Who has access to tutoring and who doesn't? Who, and so on, so on, so on. And it's not this, I think there's the myth of the individual that, man, you can do whatever you want. And if you succeed, it's all on you. And you're like, actually, no, it isn't. Sure, I want to give you the chance for you to grow and all of that. But I would, at the very least, be less quick to put somebody in a low potential box for some reason or exclude them for some reason. So why is it important? I think greater openness will yield much better results. I think it makes you much more mindful of how to get the most of people and put them in a context that's right for them, so that you can get the most from them, so that they can get the most from themselves. So it's a shame how it's become kind of a political thing, which is bizarre to me, because to me it's kind of unambiguously good that at least we are examining the systems and structures we have in place, and we're being much more, or it can lead to us being much more curious about the individual and what potential they have outside of any particular system or context.
Is there at least one truth that you notice in companies' culture that is unpleasant or uncomfortable about diversity?
Sure. I often I often feel like it's like an immune system, and when there's a change, the corporate antibodies come out and attack that change, and so companies are very resistant. Cultures are very resistant to change for that reason. And DEI is probably a good example. Like you would think, hey, we're done, right? Like we've already made this kind of progress, but no, behind the scenes, people are like, I don't know if he's a good fit. I don't know if he's like one of us, right? That kind of in group and out group kind of primal human behavior is ever present, and I think in companies, it doesn't go away, will never go away. It's like these other practices we've talked about. Like you have to keep on top of it. You have to be ever vigilant to make sure you're not falling back into, we just want people who are obviously in our in-group. Those are the kinds of people that we want. They're a better cultural fit. And I think whenever you hear yourself
Could you
saying
please
that,
explain?
you got to go be careful.
Could you please explain what is in-group and out-group is?
Sorry.
Because maybe someone is listening for the first time.
It just says in group. It's a very porous thing, but lovely research examples about this. In group is simply people like me, people who are like us, and out group is other. Now we are wired even from infancy to detect who's like us and who's not. It could be the color of your skin. It could be, in other staged experiments, if they're wearing the same football jersey or not as you. It could be gender. It could be all sorts of cues which can be easily manipulated. So if I'm talking to you, I could say, hey, he's different. Right? He's got a different accent, right? He's not like me. He's not my in-group. But then, I read Working Out Loud, and I have, it resonates with me. And wait, no, he's in my in-group now, right? So the bad news, and neurobiologist Robert Sapolsky does a beautiful job of talking about this. The bad news is that we're wired for this, to subliminally categorize people instantly into us and them, into who's in my group and who's not. So that's the bad news. And we are biased. It's systemic bias. It's the way it is. The good news is that these are very porous boundaries. You can change them very quickly, as we just with your example. And thus, if you're mindful of that we do this unconsciously, you can kind of activate the conscious part of your brain to look for common ground, to look for overlap, so that this person you would normally consider in the outgroup, maybe they're a homeless person, maybe they're a protester, maybe they're the other political party, right? You're instantly they're in the outgroup, but you can activate your conscious mind to say, okay, but what are some things that we've got in common to bring them in? And as a pastor said, like that, you want to make the circle of us as big as possible, and that is a great aspiration.
I'm just recently I was, and also even today I was listening to some videos explaining how biased we are, and this is the same what you were talking about, like this in-group, out-group, and how we judge people like without unconsciously, okay? And then it affects the hiring process, for example, and how much you are promoted at work. And they said that many people who have less talent, but they understand this, they practice this, they are the ones who usually get ahead in their careers because they know how to, I mean, with intention or unintentionally, but they know how to play with this in a way that makes people who are like decision makers feel that they are on their side, and this is what affects the most their career path.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this is not new. Like, are you one of the guys and you play golf and then you go out and things happen, or are you not one of the guys and you don't play golf and you're excluded? Like, it's as simple as that, right? Like, who's one of us? What I one of the things I'm very happy about working out loud is that in these circles, they tend to be people who don't know each other. And they tend to be people who are quite different goals, different backgrounds. I just talked to one yesterday. They were literally all over the world. That experience, that giving and receiving in the circle, in a psychologically safe space, quickly bonds them into us. And you have people say, I love my circle. You're like, you didn't even know each other, a week ago. And why I'm so keen on that isn't just for those 5 people. It's great that they're having, making friends. Why I'm keen on it is that it helps those 5 people experience what we're talking about. Like, oh, I had assumed she would be like this, but once I got to know her, it changed. And I'm hoping, and in fact, I have evidence that they take that experience outside of their circle. So, the point of working out loud is you accomplish these goals, you build skills, you build these connections with your circle. All of that's true, but kind of underneath, there's this other benefit of you. It changes how you relate to other people in a very positive, pro-social way, and that's back to Ikigai. Like, that's my mission, right? The world is like going to hell in a handbasket with the way we're polarized. And there's a certain meanness, real or imagined, but we feel it. And this is my small contribution to try to counteract that, to have people experience that, it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah, this feels really good when we're just kind of being helpful and supporting each other, and sometimes giving, and some otherish and selfish. Like, it feels good, authentic, human. Maybe I'll do more of that. Great.
So we talk about already now a bit of the corporate culture from one aspect. I'm curious to know, like, what is your honest take on the corporate world in this era, and what do you think that needs to change in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's I find there are trade-offs. So, yes, there are negatives. I find it could be a little soulless. It could be a little uncaring. Just look at how people are, how people are treated when the company changes and downsizes, right? It's or how they're recruited, right? That number of stories of just a kind of just bad behavior on how you treat people. So there's that. And AI is not going to help at all. But having said that, it's a fantastic thing in 2026 to have a paycheck every couple of weeks, and to have at least some kind of stability that comes with being part of an organization, even if it's not as stable as it once was. And any freelancer out there will say, yeah, I can relate to that. It's lovely to be your own boss and have the freedom and all of that. But then when you realize how hard it is to make a living on your own, then companies don't look so bad. So what has to change? Has to is a strong word. I don't know that it's going to change, but what I feel that we can do, and back to what I could do, is to create these circles, these small spaces where people, it's like a microculture, small spaces where people can behave in a different way. That even in the context of whatever system they're in, right? No matter how inhuman or how mean or whatever it is, how controlling, they can still experience self-determination within their circle and then within their broader network. A guy at Bosch told me, he's like, you could tell when somebody's been in a circle. Like you could tell when you're interacting with them, it's a certain vibe, it's a certain way that they have of being open and generous. You could tell. Does that change the culture of Bosch? No, it's 400,000 people. But it changes that microculture, maybe that person's team, the projects that they're on, and that has these positive ripples out. And I think, so going back to your question, I think there's so much that companies can do better to help people have a more rewarding experience at work, to be more alive at work. I'm not optimistic they're going to do that. And so this is my way of doing it in the small, so to speak, and giving people the chance to do it themselves and not wait for the company to become enlightened.
Leading from within, starting with yourself.
Yeah, that's right. And I'd much rather look again. If do you remember Reinventing Organizations? Remember that book? It was more than 10 years ago. And when you read this book, Frederick Laloux, when you read this book, you're like, this is it. This is the answer. Like this is what companies are going to be like, right? And it talked about enlightened companies like a healthcare company, Sorg. It talked about Gore, W.L. Gore, the company, and a few handful of examples. Morningstar. It's 10 years later. It's the same examples. Like those corporate antibodies came out and attack. So all I'm saying is that I applaud the people who are trying to change the structure of companies and do something systemic. I just don't want to wait for that. And I don't want to have other people have to wait for that. I want them to be able to do something now. Experience self-determination. Yes, it will be in the small. It won't affect the whole company, perhaps. But it affects them. It affects their circle. It affects the people that they interact with throughout the day. I'll give you one quick example. I partner with a woman in Germany, Katarina. She's fantastic. She worked at Bosch. She has her own company now called Connecting Humans. And she's running a pilot at a manufacturing company in Germany at 2 plants. It's another working out loud method. But here's the idea. Their goal in the first week, their first meeting, just 3 people, they're factory workers, right? A highly controlled job. Like it's very specific what they're supposed to do, not much freedom at all. And yet we want people, even in those constrained jobs, to feel this sense of self-determination. And so we created a program. It's called More Good Days. And in the first week, in their circle, they talk about, like, when's the last time you had a good day at work? What was that like? And And then over 8 weeks, we give them the room, the space, the support to experiment, to say, what can I do, even within this constrained job? What can I do to have more days like that? And it could be the way they treat colleagues. It could be their approach to the particular tasks that they have. But it's an empowerment that they don't normally get in those kinds of jobs.
Since you started talking also about AI already, AI is reshaping everything, and also about the future. What do you think, from your view, like the most important leadership skills that change makers need to have the next decade?
One of them will be, how can we frame AI? How can we leverage it in a way that feels more like an invitation to employees than a threat? And so what happens? Management's excited. They buy Copilot. They roll it out. They tell everybody to use it. And everyone's looking around, just reading the news, saying, like, how many jobs are going to go away? That is not exactly the environment for creativity and innovation. Now, one of the methods we're working on is, how can we help people, management's already sold. How can we help people to look at these tools and experiment with them with an intrinsically motivated goal of, how can this thing make me more valuable? How can this thing not just be more productive, right? More work, less time. But how can it make me more valuable? How can it make me more alive? How can it make me more aspirational, right? Outside of the contents of my job description. If we could do that, if leaders can do that, then they could just light a fire inside people that would lead to, again, and sustainable improvement that I think we haven't seen ever before.
So this, the number one, let's say, skill is to know how to let people experiment with AI, let's say, and instead of being afraid of it, to have more space for innovation instead of a threat.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So this
just
number one. Do you have any other ones you'd like to share?
this all falls under the umbrella of sparking intrinsic motivation in employees. And so in some ways, this isn't new. Like, that really was the role of leadership all along. And now, just with AI, I think it becomes perhaps even more important. Because this is not a time when leaders are going to hand down instructions down the org chart. They're going to have to motivate people to do this on their own.
Last question about working out loud, which is, what is for you the thing that comes to your mind now that was like really transformational story from someone who did this or practiced working out loud, who was in the group?
So many people have gone on to create things that they never would have had the courage to do before. One, I mentioned my partner, Katarina. She started as an assistant at Bosch. Again, a fine job. She wanted to do more. She was the first person to try working out loud in the company. It was 2016. And then, against her boss's wishes, she spread it. And over time, she reached 10,000 people at Bosch. But then she does it. She says, I want to go. I want to keep going. She starts a female empowerment program outside of Bosch. She's reached almost 7,000 people with that program. And now she has her own business. She's helping. She's raised tons of money for nonprofits through these programs. And in some ways, I feel like she's just beginning. And this is exactly what I mean by, like, unlocking what's inside of people. Like, Katarina absolutely could have stayed in her job with her boss, hoping the next performance review or restructuring or whatever it is would go her way, right? Like career roulette. But she used this structured approach to exploration. What else was out there? Who else was out there? And then experimenting with that in a safe space led her to things that served her. She's got her own company. She travels around giving talks. She's quite famous in some ways, but she's helped thousands, tens of thousands of people. I mean, that's selfish. It's beautiful for Katarina and her kind of fulfilling work in life that's come about. And it's otherish for these tens of thousands of other people, including these 7,000 women. And I think that's why I love her as a partner. And both the work she's done, I draw inspiration from her all the time. And it's just one example of what's possible. You don't have to do that to be a success story, right? You don't have to do necessarily big things like Katarina's done, but you do have to dare to try, dare to give voice to things that are important to you. And whether that's in a big way or a small way, as long as it's authentic and rewarding for you, then that's great. And that's what we hope to enable.
Do you think there's anything that's important you think we need to talk about we haven't mentioned yet?
Maybe a bit of a disclaimer in that, at first I thought working out loud was about the steps, the specific exercises I came up with or how I delivered it or something like that. And that was the thing, right, which is kind of very ego driven. But over time, as I've talked to so many circles and as we've developed now 8 methods, I've learned that it's not so much about one specific exercise or idea that's going to change you. The real magic in what we're doing is bringing together people in this safe space where they could show up as themselves. They can make some kind of progress that's intrinsically motivated, and then do that over time. And that little recipe, which isn't new, I just gave it a name and I gave it a structure. But it's that recipe of small groups, intrinsic goals, deliberate practice over time that really seems to unlock some kind of magic in people. And if there's one thing I want to say, it's don't get too caught up in a method or in loud or in any particular one idea, but it's this experience with other people. Like that's where the magic happens. And I hope whether it's working out loud or some other method or program that everyone gets the chance to experience that.
John, this question now is, I'm gonna read it as it is, and I will tell you later why.
Okay.
What is it in your life that is worth living for, not dying for, but living for? That is exactly how my previous guest, Hilary Bilbrey, asked me to ask a future guest this question. So that's why I read it as it is.
I think worth living for, not dying for. Because if you have kids, or you die for your kids. I know kids are very, it's built into us, most of us. What's worth living for? I want to see how far I can go, how far we can go in spreading this pro-social way of working, way of relating to each other. That, back to Ikigai, that would be worth it for me to spend the rest of my life working on, to see, again, amidst all of the kind of cultural turbulence that's happening now, can we spread ways where the opposite's happening, where people are generous and kind and open and helpful. And I know we can. I have evidence of that. We've done it for 10 years unevenly. And now I'm at a point in my life, I feel a renewed sense of mission to see how far we could spread that. And that's worth living for, like, because it's going to take a long time and a lot of work, but it's good work. And I think it's good for my kids to see that kind of work as well. So it's worth living for. Thanks for that question.
Renewed sense of
Mission.
mission. Is it do you mean like because what I understand from mission, I mean, what is purpose, vision, mission, values? Among all of these, usually mission is the one that is more probable to be updated, right? So do you mean also that you're looking at your mission in a new way now?
I do, actually. Oh, I think we talked about Ikigai is something you have to keep paying attention to because you could fall off the path. And I think in the beginning, I had a certain sense of mission as people were first using my work and starting to experience some positive benefits. I'm like, oh, I want more of that. And then I tried to turn it into a business, and I lost sight a bit, like who is this for, and what's it for? And now we've opened things up, so there are coaches all around the world that we're going to have spread it as part of their business. And I think I found this more sustainable way where we while still being human, like I work with each coach individually, but we can leverage their intrinsic motivation to spread it, and they can find all sorts of nooks and crannies all around the world to help people locally in a way that I never could. So it'll be a bit less ego this time, and it will still be maybe a bit more selfish in some ways, more otherish in others. But renewed sense of mission. You're right. It's been updated, and I think what we have now feels aligned and sustainable. And Los Gates, let's go. I'm charged up to see what the next 10 years look like.
What is your question now, John? That you like a question about something that you are curious about, that you like to hear, and your perspective on something that you've been reflecting on, maybe.
It might seem like too lofty a question, but it's one that I ask the coaches that I work with. Not as an interview question, but just as a genuine, I'm curious about you question, which is, what kind of positive difference would you like to make? And I think for many people, and again, myself included at various times, you're so busy that you're like, what are you talking about? Positive difference. Like, I'm just trying to get through the day or make dinner or get the slides in on time or whatever, or get the podcast edited. That you don't have the luxury of pausing and considering, like, where am I going again? And I framed it that way, so it is otherish, not like, what do you want to accomplish? What kind of positive difference would you like to make? And if you don't know, that's okay, but maybe take some time and think about that. I look forward to
There's
your next
something that's
podcast
coming.
and hearing that answer now.
I will let you know. But there's something that is you are reminding me of, and also a previous guest said it in a different way, that it's okay not to know, and sometimes even confusion is good. When you know that you are confused about something, that you don't have the clarity in your life, like what do you want, what is your purpose, etc. It's a good thing. Then you know now that you don't know, so you can start knowing.
Right. And sometimes circles are good for just that, just like this purposeful discovery, this kind of exploration in a safe space, so that you're like, hey, I don't know, but I'm going to take some steps to explore and see where that leads me. And that could be a great time for one of these peer groups.
Thank you very much, John. It was a rich discussion, and I like first of all, your energy and your intention, the clear intention of what you do and why you do it, and how many times, like you mentioned, the word, for example, intention, purpose, in a different ways. And I felt this also, like during how you speak and also what you do.
Well, that's very
Yeah,
kind. Thank you.
there are so many things that I will take from me. Yes, and for example, how many times you say that about your take on diversity, also contribution, how to not to focus on expecting certain outcomes, but really like be in service, thinking and being aware of yourself and your ego, and many other things. The question I would like to end with: how do you celebrate life?
The best moments for me are when I am fully present with my family. And I mean, like, so you give yourself permission to be fully present, right? So you're not like doing something else or trying to, or carved out time. Just last night was one of those moments, and it's almost like I know it sounds crazy, but like a reward. Like, okay, I've done my work for the day or whatever it is, and I'm just gonna really just savor this time. That for me is a way to celebrate life. The other is just I live right near Central Park, and just long walks in the park together with the 42 other million people who do that. These two things, and both of them, what they have in common is this sense of presence, this sense of savoring a moment. And I think for many people amidst the busyness of everyday life, it may not be the kind of celebration you had in mind. There's no champagne involved, but there is an engagement with the moment and with life that feels like a celebration. Boy, you've made me think
Thank you
on this
very much, John.
podcast, I'll
As
tell
I
you.
said, it was.
What a pleasure.
Thank you, John. If you have any final thoughts, anything you'd like to share.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the conversation. I really enjoyed it. And then for people listening, it would be that, whether or not you use working out loud, I would ask that you give yourself the chance, the space, the time, the structure to invest in yourself, to invest in your growth, to invest in your social connections. There are many, many programs that can help you do that. You can do it on your own if you're a certain kind of person. I found that hard. But that investment that you make in your personal growth and in building relationships with people, trusted, meaningful relationships, those investments have a huge return, a huge compounding return over the course of your life. And so put something in your calendar, try to, whatever tricks you need to do to bring that intention to life will be worth it. And I hope you do.
Thank you very much, John. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah,
And
same. It was great.
Yeah, I wish you all the best.
Same here. And thank you. Take good care.
Congratulations for listening until the end. You are in the top 25% of listeners. Studies show that we forget up to 70% of what we hear within 24 hours. But when we repeat an insight by sharing it with someone, commenting, or journaling it, it moves into long-term memory. So now tell me, what are your 1 to 3 takeaways you're keeping from this conversation? Enjoy every moment. Until next time.